Words reach out to us when we are alone. Words comfort us when we are in fear. Words matter. Today's guest is someone who is spreading hope, knowledge, and positivity with her words, reminding us that words matter. Proud to welcome our next guest, Shubnum Khan, on StreeMing show. We are so thankful to you, ma'am, for accepting our request to come with us on our show. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today. I would like to give a quick introduction. So, Shubnum Khan is an author. She's a writer, an artist, an educator, and a blogger. Her book, Onion Tears, was listed for the Sunday Times Fiction Prize, shortlisted for the University of Johannesburg Debut Prize and the Penguin Prize for African Writing. It was selected for exclusive books Homebru list as well. Her articles and essays are published in HuffPost, South Africa, the New York Times, Modern Love, the Oprah magazine, the Sunday Times, the Daily Vox, the Big Issue, the Mail Guardian Thoughtleader column. Wow, that's amazing, ma'am. We are so glad to have you with us today. Thank you for joining. So, ma'am, firstly, I would like to ask you, what inspired you to choose writing as your career? And when did you first realize that you were drawn to storytelling?
Thanks for the question, Maulshree. I think I was first attracted to storytelling because I was surrounded by so many storytellers in my family. So my grandfather would tell us stories when we were little. My older sister would take me to the library and borrow all these books for me. So I found that I was very interested and engaged by these stories of princes and mountains and kings. And it just seemed so interesting to me that you could enter these whole new worlds. As a child, like with these books, thinking if I just open these pages and I concentrate on what I'm reading, these little squiggles on the page, I can be taken to an entire new world, a world I'd never thought of in my life before. So I think I was surrounded by a lot of storytellers, and I was very lucky in that way. And the first part of your question about wanting to or choosing writing as a career, I didn't know I was going to choose writing as a career. I think especially as an Indian woman in our communities, you're told that these are very unconventional careers. I mean, firstly, even having a career, and then secondly, something so unconventional as writing, like, that's not a career realistically, that's what people would tell you. That's not a career that you can take realistically, and you're not going to make money out of it. And it's just, but I always knew in the back of my head, I really enjoyed reading, and I always knew I wanted to write my own story. And so I didn't know I was going to be a writer, at least not a writer full time. But, I think I kept pursuing it, and I kept reading, and I kept trying, and I'd go to publishers, and I'd keep trying to make the story happen and make this happen for me. And that's how it happened. I'd send my magazine articles out. I'd meet publishers, I'd network, and that's sort of like how I became a writer. But I do think I fell into it more than thought, oh, clearly I'm going to become a writer when I grow up.
Yeah, very true. Choosing writing as a career is a little difficult, especially being coming from the origin where you come from. As we know, it's your own life story that you have penned down in your book, How I Accidentally Become a Global Stock Photo and Other Strange and Wonderful Stories. What made you bring the personal experience out in public? And to what extent is this book fictionalized?
So I used to share a lot of these stories on Twitter a few years ago because I'd have a lot of funny and strange things happen to me. I did a writing residency in China where I was living in Shanghai, and I went to this strange party where everybody was dressed as brides, and I still don't know to this day why we were dressed as brides, and I became a bride on a rooftop in Shanghai. And so I shared this story on Twitter, and people were laughing because they couldn't. It was just the weirdest thing. And I had photos of me in the wedding dress. So it wasn't a lie, And people were engaged with the story. And then I told them the story about how I accidentally became a global stock photo. So when I was in university, my photo, we thought we were using it for an art project. And the photographer actually sold all these photos of ours as a stock photo, and we'd signed a document, so it was legal. But we didn't know this, and until I started appearing in adverts like in Canada and in McDonald's in India and on highways across Mumbai and in billboards in the US and bus stops in London, and people would send me the photos and say, I've seen you here. That's only when I realized that my photo had just been misused and was in all these strange, ridiculous places. And so I shared that story. And so I just kept sharing all these very strange stories. And that was when a publisher approached me and said, don't you want to collect all these stories in a collection, in a book? And I always knew I wanted to write my stories. I think everybody wants to do that at some point, like write about all my experiences, my life experiences, what I've gone through to come to where I am now. And when I put that collection of stories together, when I signed that contract to make that book, I didn't know what that book was going to look like. I just thought it was going to be a collection of funny stories, and I'm going to make it so funny and we're all going to laugh. And then I realized when I was writing the story, I actually had to tell readers who I am, what the kind of person I am, that I get moody and that I'm emotional and that I went through down periods and that I also had like great experiences, but they weren't easy. I was scared most of the time. I was anxious to travel by myself as a woman most of the time. And I put a lot of that in the book, which I didn't expect to do. And that's how it became personal. So again, it's like with how I became a writer, I didn't expect it to happen. But somehow it happened. And I realized I could only tell this kind of story with being honest about who I am as a person. And I had to show that I had to be vulnerable in the writing and show when I was scared and when I was nervous and when I made mistakes. And I guess also coming to that last part of that question about how much of it is fictionalized, is that exactly what I'm saying now is I knew I had to be as honest as possible in the book, to tell my story, to show readers and to connect with readers. So there's no part that's fictionalized. Like I was very intentional about, even if you're going to make a funny joke in the story, don't change what happened. You have to be very honest, because I also think you mustn't underestimate the readers. They can see when you're hiding or when you're trying to tell a story for story's sake, and they can see when you're being honest. And so I went very intentionally into writing this book with that intention. Like I'm going to try to be as honest as possible about everything that happened. And yeah, so that's how the book came to be.
Yes, ma'am. So that's an interesting story, but it wouldn't have been easier for you to, just open up your entire life and your personality, your behavior and your desires, everything, but you still, chose to be honest and shared whatever you experienced in your book. So I'm sure it must be interesting, and we all would love to read it. So, ma'am, also before this, you had also written one more book. So, how did you pick the story for your debut book, that is The Onion Tears?
Yeah, so my first novel, I wrote that when I was 23, 24. I was pretty young. And they always say your first book is autobiographical. And so, I had it based a little bit on an aunt of mine who used to like making pickles and achar for a living, and she'd sell it from her house, and she was very interesting. And so I used that kind of character as a catalyst for the rest of the story, which is a lot about Indian Muslim women living in South Africa and the community there, and how they struggle being away, like the different generations. You've got a first, second, and third generation, and how they struggled being away from India and how they identify as South African. And I think that story was just because you have to get something personal out of you for the first book, and then you can write whatever you want. So really the idea came, and also because I have 3 older sisters. My mom has 7 older sisters, had 7 older sisters. So I really wanted to write about women and their experiences and the difficulties that they face and the kind of struggles that they were going through. So I think it was just what I was the kind of stories I was surrounded by that helped me tell the story of my Onion Tears.
Your titles of books are very interesting, like how I accidentally became a global stock photo. Have you literally thought a lot of time, like what to put the titles, or it came at one go itself?
No, I had to think very hard about Onion Tears. It was a lot about food. The book is a lot about Indian food, and the characters are very sad. So they're crying, and the one cuts onions for everything. So that's where Onion Tears came from. How I accidentally became a global stock photo is a very big mouthful of a title. But we thought that the publisher and I thought that if people would pick it up to read more about what this book is about, because the title is so strange, although very long.
It's stick in our mind. The time we read it, it's stick in our mind. You know, it have that power. So kudos for getting that title. So you were in India and was teaching kids in Kashmir. So tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so that was my first experience traveling on my own and doing things on my own. And I went to live in this village in Kashmir, and I taught at the school, the Haji Public School, and it was just amazing because the kids were so eager to learn. It was my first, you know, I can never say that I went there to go and volunteer and teach children who needed it, because that wasn't the case for me. It was more, and I wanted to go out and live in the world. You know, I came from a very sheltered background, and it took me a long time to convince my parents to even go up onto this, to live, to go and stay in a village on a mountain in Kashmir, in another country for them. You know, it was very hard for them to accept. But I knew if I wanted to grow as a human being and grow as a person, I needed to go and have experiences, because you can read so many books about being brave, but if you don't go out and be brave, then what's the point? So I knew, even though I was so scared to do it, I had to go and do it. And it was really a life-changing experience. I learned so much from the children. They were just so kind and always helpful. You know, if I'd be on the horse, you have to take like a horse to get up the mountain. There's no cars in that part of the village. They would help you. They'd always be asking if you needed anything, and they were so eager to learn, and they were just ready to learn everything you were willing to teach. So it was really a life-changing experience, and it really helped me start this journey on to into the world, but also into myself, because I had to really question who I was and what was I doing to make my dreams come true. And for me to be sitting in the Himalayas underneath the stars with all these children taught me that I can make my dreams come true. You know, if I pursue them hard enough, even if it's hard.
So, ma'am, that must have been a beautiful experience for sure. And we would love to have you in India again, hopefully. Ma'am, apart from being a writer, you're also an artist, and you sketch beautifully. We have seen some of your sketches, and it seems that there is some kind of story in that. So, is it intentional that you sketch something which tells a story, or it is just a flow?
Yeah, no, all my drawings are generally with the intention behind it. I don't just draw for the sake of drawing. And that's also why I take drawing commissions, because I like hearing the story behind whoever gives me the commission. So they'll be like, my sister is very depressed. I need to help her. I wanted to see that she's beautiful inside. Can you do me a drawing that will express to her that I see her beauty, you know? Or I want to celebrate my child's birth. And I've even had ones where they wanted to commemorate the child's death, because they want to remember that the child was alive once, you know? And so for me, those are very important, the intentions that come behind the commissions that I get for the drawings. And I mean, even my own personal drawings are all about transformation. And so I like using a lot of lines, a lot of dots, to show that things break up, but when you look at them in the whole, they're actually the big picture. And that's what I feel life is like. You know, it's made up of all these very tiny moments, and they don't have to be good always, or bad, or broken, or shattered, or beautiful. But when you look at the bigger picture, you can see what this all means. And for me, that's how life is. And so I try to make my writing reflect that. I mean, sorry, my drawing reflect that. And often my drawing is about women who are transforming and learning, because that's very important to me in everything, in my writing and my drawing, is women who transform and seek what their identity is, and continuously try to grow. So yeah.
So true. Like art is language of heart, and You are doing it through your stories and painting so good. And you are a strong voice with great self-expression. Even today, not many women feel safe and free to speak about themselves and for themselves. So what advice would you like to give to all the women across the world on how they can speak and live freely?
I mean, I think it's always a process. It's not a simple, easy thing. And I don't have a simple, easy answer for it. But I can tell you from my own experience that you have to pursue who you are, even though it feels sometimes impossible and everybody will be against you and will feel like the whole of society and community and even people you love, like often won't approve of what you're doing. But I do think you have to keep that flame burning and that desire to pursue what you love and believe in it and believe that it can happen, because no matter where you are, everyone's going to tell you what to do and how to do it. But you have to know who you are. And I think so that I think that process of learning who you are is so important if you want to live a fulfilled life, if you want to live a satisfied life. And it's not going to be easy. It will be hard, but you have to pursue that. And I think if you can pursue that, and you have to have patience also, it's going to take time. The rewards are so great because then you know who you are. You come to a place where you want to be in that place where you are. I feel like I'm in that place, like I'm in that place where I want to be. And it took me a long time to get here. And I had to fight against a lot of systems and community and things in place that say, oh, but your place as a woman is at home, or oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or you should be like that. And I think all women face that. And you should be married by a certain age, and you should be having children. And at the end of the day, the only person living your life is you. So, and you're the only one who's going to experience what you're going through. So you have to pursue what you love because you only have this one life. So that's my long advice. Yeah.
And that's a beautiful advice. So, like you said, that you had to fight a lot of communities and the ideologies, I would say, and still you chose to pursue what you love, and you chose to follow your passion, and you chose to speak freely. So, ma'am, that takes a lot of courage, and you have done that beautifully. And, ma'am, also, there's just one last question that I would like to ask you. So, while writing books and your articles, is there something that you have learned, like in that process of writing?
Um, in terms of what I have learned, sorry about all this noise. In terms of what I've learned from my writing, it's similar to what I just said now, in the sense that I think if you keep pursuing something, really believe in it, wonderful, amazing things can happen. And you just have to trust in what you're doing. And so often, even some of the books that I'm writing, people are like, those books are not going to do well, or that's not an idea. This is a very strange story. Why do you want to pursue it, And I've had the experience where I kept going at it and I kept going for it. And the book is you can see now that it's in a much better place than it was before. And so I think if you just writing has taught me that if you work hard on your craft and you follow it with a passion, it will reward you, even if you can't see it at the time. It will reward you. And all that work never not shows for something.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing that. And we hope that your words and your writings will keep inspiring us. May you keep writing with the ink of light and positivity, and keep inspiring all of us, everybody around the world, with your storytelling as well as with your art. So, ma'am, our whole team of Hasya Hetu Films would like to thank you, and also would like to wish you success and a great life ahead. Thank you so much for reminding us to follow our passion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure, and I wish you all the luck with your future endeavors.
Thank you, ma'am.